Hello, everyone, and we are back. The holiday season is approaching, and for the month of December, we are taking a look at Christmas films. Now, we're only going to have two lined up for the month of December, but we assure you, we have chosen some good ones. I'm Dominic,
I'm Jonathan.
and today we are looking at the 1947 Christmas classic, Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, we haven't actually seen this film before, so this is the first time we actually seen this Christmas classic, which is kind of crazy because I always hear like really good things about this.
Yeah, me too. I feel like we should have watched this a long time ago, and it's crazy that we have just gotten to it now. Yeah, I know. It's absolutely insane that we just watched it for the first time.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, it's good.
Yes.
So this film was directed by George Seaton with release date of May 2nd, 1947. Had a runtime of 1 hour and 41 minutes, and the genre is a Christmas comedy drama. It stars Maureen O'Hara, John Payne, Natalie Wood, and Edmund Gwynn. The summary for A Miracle on 34th Street is the following. In this Christmas classic, an old man going by the name of Kris Kringle fills in for an intoxicated Santa in Macy's annual Thanksgiving Day parade. Kringle proves to be such a hit that he is soon appearing regularly at the chain's main store in Midtown Manhattan. When Kringle surprises customers and employees alike by claiming that he is really Santa Claus, it leads to a court case to determine his mental health and, more importantly, his authenticity.
I was honestly surprised by the way the film started.
Yeah, during Thanksgiving, which is kind of different for a Christmas film.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're starting here around Thanksgiving time, or on the day of Thanksgiving, actually.
Yeah, especially with the Macy's Thanksgiving parade being present.
Yeah.
Because again, like such a, I don't know, a big sponsorship, I guess, for Macy's to be in the film. You don't usually see in Christmas films now because, they just write out with some other fictional store of some case.
Right.
But in this one, they had Macy's, which everybody knows at this point.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to, have in this film.
I thought it was a little ironic too because I feel like the whole plot of the film is the fact that Christmas is kind of becoming commercialized,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that the movie, sponsors Macy's in the movie, it's commercialized already. So just a little weird that they were kind of
Yeah.
arguing against the point, but then they sponsored it in the film, but it's whatever.
It's to my surprise, this film was like almost as if it's like a satire in some way,
Yeah.
where
Mhm.
the comedy is very much like bold, I guess, for what I assume for either like today or of that time,
Right.
which is kind of like oh wow, because they took some like heavy shots at like certain world problems slash issues or just what people think at a different way. I don't know. It was very like I'll give you some examples. Right now, like when they were talking about keeping Santa Claus or whatnot during later in the film. They made like a jab of like Washington, for example. Like
Yeah.
you're not Washington crazy. Something like that. It's like people nowadays kind of like are suspicious of the government, but like at that point, I would have never thought that, right? Back in 1947. So for them to like even have that there already is kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. I wouldn't assume for that type of level of pointing out.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see, and I already knew this, but I was interesting to see that they were making those same points that we can still apply to our own world today in 2020.
Right.
So,
Like there's even another one where, for example, like when later in the film when the Santa Claus is pointing out to other customers that, oh, you should go to this store, to
Mhm.
this store instead of buying it at Macy's.
mhm.
And then it kind of made fun of Macy's because, they eventually like that marketing strategy, but in the same way, it's kind of like showing that these big companies only cared about this great marketing strategy only because it helped them in the end, rather
Right.
than actually helping the customer. They're like, okay, we like this appearance. So in this is like a real strategy, right? But it's kind of made fun of those companies in that realm too, which again, for Macy's to actually be a part of, I would assume at like this point in time, they were like, oh, don't put me in this this film. For 47, that's kind of crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just interesting because the obviously both sides of the different companies were kind of just scrambling and they were saying, oh, let's do this and let's do that. Oh, and if they're going to take a jab at us, we're going to take a jab at them. And I think, yeah, that was kind of like that satire of the industry in a way, and they were kind of making them look like fools, and but also like shedding light on what probably their strategies were then and what they are now. But
Also, one more example. Also, with the end of like with the court case and like the post office, for example,
uh
just in those how it went down, and behind the scenes, I guess tampering of some sort. I guess it also gave some sort of different viewpoint on just how our judicial system is put in place, and like even our post office and such. And again, for 47, it's something you don't see with all these satires. It's something that reminds me of like the Simpsons, for example, early Simpsons, where they would point out certain things that are kind of like bold and brave for the time.
yeah, I definitely picked up on those things too, and it was enjoyable to watch and um, listen to. But before, let's take a step back and let's go back to the beginning. I really did like how I guess like we were introduced to Santa real early, and I didn't expect that. I thought he was going to come in later in the film for whatever reason. But seeing him go to that first shop, and he's pointing out that the storekeeper who's like arranging for the holiday season, and I just thought it was very lighthearted, that moment when Santa comes in and he's telling them that you've made a mistake on placing the reindeer. And I didn't expect that at all, that it was just so fast. And for whatever reason in my mind, I thought we were going to see him much later.
Yeah, I liked when he was introduced in the opening shot, because you saw this camera following him through New York, and it was placed with like the title sequence, like who directed this, and giving all the credits out. So it was interesting to see just this camera following him through real time New York, and then eventually just stopping at this store where they're decorating for Christmas. And yeah, it was a neat introduction to like, okay, this is the Santa Claus of the film, and basically we're supposed to believe that he's the one and true Santa, because
Right.
he would know which reindeer would be placed in this section, even though they looked entirely the same.
Right, exactly. I think what played it up even better for just like the effect of the story and for the film is that this guy really does look like Santa Claus. And I feel like,
Yeah, he had a good look.
yeah, I feel like for probably a majority of people who are familiar with the film, they probably think that, yeah, that's how Santa Claus looks like.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and yeah, and I was just surprised that we started in the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, and we're kind of seeing like a behind the scenes of how things are ran, which is interesting. I don't know if it seemed like the main character Doris was like the basically just the one running where everyone was going to be and where everyone needed to be placed.
Yeah, it looked like she was in control of the whole parade and the structure of it. What was cool though to like see the, how it was like in the 40s or whatnot to do the parade, because this parade is still going on, in 2020.
Right.
Even with the pandemic, there's some form of this Macy's Thanksgiving parade. So to see this at like I guess a smaller scale, or just to see like, oh man, this is a big thing that's been around for generations. It's kind of cool to just see just how it was done and what how far it's came.
Yeah, and I was also interested to see when we were introduced to Doris's daughter and Mr. Gailey, if that I believe that was his name, and she had she had a different attitude than what I was expecting from a little girl in a Christmas movie. Because I feel
Yeah.
like for the most part, you see any kind of children, and they're always obsessed with the idea of Santa, and the fact that the kid was, you know, basically taught that these fairy tales don't exist because the mother believes in such things or doesn't believe in such things. It translated to the daughter as well, and it was just interesting to see that she didn't really believe in Santa. She sees everything very realistically because the mother has taught her to look at everything in that way, and it was funny to see that Mr. Gailey was trying to provide some kind of you know uh like I guess what I noticed from him is that he was saying in his mind that this is no way for a child to think,
Right.
and that they should be lost in this imaginary world or believe in people like Santa Claus.
Hmm.
And the fact that she didn't, it made it that much harder for him to communicate with her in that way.
Yeah, because he seemed like under the viewpoint where she seemed too grown up for her age. Like
Oh yeah.
you can brush these things off later in life when you grow up, right?
Mhm.
At this point, you're supposed to be imaginative and I guess have some sort of innocence in that world. Like
Right.
oh you'll
Right.
believe in whatever, and I guess for him it was like oh it's kind of off putting and it's like you haven't heard of these situations before, and it put him in a weird spot. And yeah, it also when just watching this it also put me in a weird spot. I was like yeah, she's as a kid you're captured in this, oh it's Santa or Christmas and
Yeah,
whatever,
exactly.
you can name it. And for this kid to just be like oh playing, it's kind of makes you sad in some ways, but in other ways like oh I guess she is prepared, but like I don't know, it's this talk that you can have with your own kids and basically come to some sort of conclusion.
Right. Um, yeah, and as we know, this is, or actually, we didn't know. I really didn't expect that this movie would fall within like that comedy line.
Right.
I always felt like that there was as much. I always felt like this movie was much more serious for whatever reason. I don't know why. That was just the conceptions that I've had.
Maybe because it's an older movie, so like I don't know, comedy is kind of different when it comes to older types of films.
Sure. But it was interesting to see that it was very funny. And especially with the Julian Shellhammer character, the boss of Doris.
Hmm.
Or, yeah, I believe it was her.
No, I don't know if they're
Or was it just
the boss. I
coworker?
think they're
Coworkers?
coworkers. Yeah.
Okay. And he was hilarious. He was so funny. And I feel like in a lot of ways, he was almost like the apart from the main characters, right? He was just like a really good like secondary character that just really made you laugh.
Yeah, because like how he acted towards stuff and just like I think the moment when this is like later on when they ask, oh, where's the Santa gonna go or whatnot, and he talks about, oh, I'm gonna ask my wife and make sure that she's plastered. Oh wait, no, someone else. And I don't know, that was hilarious because he would drop some, just funny lines and yeah, it was interesting for he was like that comedic character where it's like, oh okay, this guy is a somewhat, he just goes with the flow, but
Right. I feel like, but he also likes plans, I feel like it really started when, they had to replace the Santa, and then, the real Kris Kringle, the real Santa Claus had to replace the Santa that was drinking on the job.
Yeah,
And
that was funny too. Just to stop right here, where they replaced the other original Santa, I guess that they had hired. This Santa was just drinking on the flow, and it's kind of just like weird because he was even funny just for that moment. Or, oh, it's like, how am I supposed to keep warm or whatnot?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like this, I don't know, this weird, I don't know, because you wouldn't expect to see Santa perform like that, and it's kind of like funny to see like a drunken Santa,
Right.
and then eventually they had to like hire the actual quote unquote Kris Kringle.
Yeah, and I think that Shellhammer was very, he really liked seeing that the new Santa was doing such a good job and everything, and he wanted to learn a little bit more about him and was asking Doris, where'd you find him and whatnot. But I thought it was really funny when he finally does meet him and he gives him pointers on how to act as Santa because he's hired him to meet with kids in Macy's, inside Macy's. And I thought it was funny when he was trying to give the real Santa Claus pointers on how to act. And when he was going to just check up on him when the Santa was like, visiting the kids and whatnot, he started hearing that Santa was basically directing all of the kids and parents, of course, because they were standing right there, to other department stores other than Macy's. And those were the complete opposite directions that Shellhammer had given Santa. And I thought that was just funny because he was confused and he didn't understand. He's like, what's going on here? Who did I just hire?
He was about to stop it, but then, eventually when Mr. Macy came, he's like, oh, no, this is really, I'll take all the credit for it.
Right.
He's kind of like this cowardly character that is also funny and somewhat lighthearted. They're not like really evil in some ways, but they could cause some sort of trouble throughout the film. And I don't know, his character was funny for the most part with that. I guess just also with just how once eventually the Santa comes into play, he gets hired or whatnot. Just everybody's reactions towards who he believes. I was like, oh, I'm all Kris Kringle, and
Right.
they see all the resume that he turns in, and even that was kind of funny too. Like, oh, where I'm from, and I'm from the North Pole or whatnot.
Yeah, because I mean, they're trying to find proof that he is not the real Santa, that he's not Santa Claus. Because of course, anyone who's thinking logically would think, he's just a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
He's just a guy in a costume. So the fact when they were trying to understand who he was with just reason, and they were finding out that like more and more that this guy is really who he says he is. They just couldn't believe it. And it was just
like confused or whatnot.
Right. And it played to the comedy. It played to that effect very well.
I think what part I really liked during that is when he basically predicted what would come next with like the mental health exam.
Oh,
and he did all the motions, or whatnot. And then eventually it just cut, and it came back into those exact motions that he predicted he would do. And that was hilarious because like, oh, he knew already. And it was like another level of comedy that just added to the his whole charm.
Yeah, it was interesting because I felt like the movie did both giving us like a foreshadow of what would happen next, but then there would also be moments when I didn't see where it was going, and it was funny in that way because I thought that the movie would be completely different, and then it would just kind of hitting you with these surprises and then giving you foreshadows as to what would happen next. And I thought it did a very good job with like going back and forth between that, and just didn't expect it as all. What did you think about when Santa got closer with Doris and, her daughter? What did you think was going to happen between the daughter and Santa?
Basically, because it's a Christmas film, I thought everything would, at the end be happily ever after. He'd basically get her to believe in some sort of fantasy, that Santa's real, and maybe spark some imagination to or I guess happiness to her mother too. So like, yeah, I thought at the end everything would go all well. What was interesting though, when they, come in contact and all that stuff, right? What threw her like this curveball is eventually, he asked her, like, what do you want or whatnot. He was thinking, oh, he'd be like some sort of toy pony or some sort, or something small, right?
Right.
Something some little girl would want. But then she just pulls out this like newspaper with this big old house. And it's kind of like, oh, how is Santa supposed to produce this? Realistically. And that was kind of like another level of like, oh, they one up the stakes, I guess, and it kind of gave this other dimension, like, oh, could he actually fail or whatnot?
Right.
Because again, and generally in a Christmas movie, everything's gonna work out in the end.
Hmm.
But in this one, it's kind of like it actually gave you some sort of like, oh, maybe maybe this could end up bad.
Right. And then you're thinking, but he's Santa. He's Santa
Yeah, he's
Claus.
Santa though.
So it's like he's got to figure it out somehow, but how?
Right.
But I almost feel like it started. I really liked their relationship because I feel like it started, as we know, the daughter Susan. She, doesn't believe in this stuff because she was taught to not believe in the fairy tales. And
Right.
I liked it when she kind of got glimpses of the Santa, and she was a little because she was brought by Gailey, Mr. Gailey or Fred. Um, she was brought to see him,
Mhm.
and the more she interacted with him, like kind of in secret at first. She was just kind of like watching him and a little bit skeptical, even like pulling his beard, the obvious trick.
Yeah.
Uh, but just like him interacting with Santa, interacting with other kids. And the really cool one was with that Dutch girl, and
Yeah.
he was speaking her language. And that was very interesting when, because Susan's watching that whole thing go down, and she's like starting to believe it. You can kind of see it in her eyes, or she's a little bit confused because she can't quite understand it at this point. Like, how
Mhm.
is he doing this? And is he, like his, he's really nice. His beard's real. He's got to be Santa, or she's at least getting convinced. And that's kind of what we see throughout the movie. She's slowly becoming convinced that he is Santa Claus.
Yeah, it was really cool to see all that because again, this movie would throw in challenges after challenge, and you would think that okay, Santa can't do this part. Oh man, what's gonna happen here? But eventually, Santa would find some sort of way to combat this, or find some sort of option throughout and through other people, and again, it gave the sense of okay, I guess with other people's help, Santa could overcome all this stuff, and it
Hmm.
gave you this sort of hope to see that okay, what's the relationship's going to turn into, and you started to really enjoy these relationship dynamics and where they were going to go, and it just kept you there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like what you're saying that, the relationships kind of help Santa, and um, you like to see like how they develop and where they go. Like even as I was watching through the film, I was really starting to pick up that of course Santa is this magical being who, is the spirit of Christmas and what it represents and everything. And Kris Kringle, everyone knows the story. I don't need to, sum it up for you, but um, it was interesting to see that with this take of Santa and Miracle, it felt like it was more of the people creating their own like Christmas and their own like special moments. And it was really Santa just kind of giving them a little bit of a push.
Right.
And that was like really all it took. And it's almost like people weren't exactly realizing that it was coming from them all along. And it's like Santa was just trying to
Remind them.
yeah, remind them. Because like when Santa started working for Macy's, I love that the relationship between Santa and
Alfred, right?
yeah, Alfred, and it was such like they just hit it off so well,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that beginning conversation. And it's because they had that relationship between Alfred liked to pretend to be Santa. And it's weird because Alfred never questioned him at all for
Yeah.
him being Santa or having that conversation or any kind of doubt as to who this person may be. And he just believed him. And yeah, I guess it was just interesting to see that these characters had it in them throughout the entire film. I just think that they forgot, and Santa was there to remind them of all of that. Even with the kind of the not so good characters like that psychiatrist who works at Macy's.
Sawyer, I believe.
Yeah, Sawyer. And I was just kind of like, Santa was just trying to be good with this guy, and uh, Sawyer was just being a terrible, awful human being.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't know. it was interesting to see that even with the bad relationships, Santa was still trying to give something to all the characters, even when they didn't exactly want it, like Sawyer.
Right, like I think whenever he came into contact with any character throughout the movie, they sort of changed in some way, and I actually thought that Sawyer would actually change faster than what actually happened.
Hmm.
I thought, oh, he turned good during their first meeting, but what surprised me was that he actually became, or like he doubled down on, oh, you know, this guy's crazy or whatnot, and you know, you should get rid of him, stuff like that. I was like, I thought Santa would, you know, immediately fix him, I guess, for some reason,
Me too.
and that didn't happen. And I guess it also gave this like, okay, so you know, again, where is this going and how is this going to be implemented? Because obviously, I didn't think we'd seen the last of him, you know.
Right. It was another element of this kind of like the adding to the drama of can Santa, like how you were saying with how Susan wanted the house for Christmas, and then the issue with Santa and Sawyer, it was like,
Can he help him too?
yeah, can he help him?
Yeah.
Because it almost seemed like he wasn't going to be able to, especially at the point when he hit him with his cane or his
later on.
umbrella.
Yep.
And I was like, I didn't think Santa would turn quote unquote violent. I don't want to consider it violence, but
He took aim and he hit him.
yeah, he hit him with it. But like, it was one of those relationships that you were thinking to yourself throughout the movie, could he actually help him? Because it didn't seem like he would be able to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually surprised they actually went the quote unquote violent route where he actually hit him. I was surprised that I thought it was like, they'll have some others, you know, battle of some sort, right? But I didn't expect him to actually hit him, and just how it went down, where okay, because he hit me, you know, this whole court case would happen and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
didn't think it would escalate that far watching it,
Nor did I.
and it's kind of interesting to see just where everyone went throughout that, and yeah, I don't know, it was different, I guess, just to see it for the first time.
Right, and it was interesting too because throughout the beginning of the film, Doris isn't too fond of Kris Kringle slash Santa Claus,
Hmm.
and it was nice to see the progression that, and I feel like it happened pretty quickly too, that she was just starting to develop more of a good working relationship with him, and wanted to keep him around too because in the beginning she wanted to just get rid of the guy.
Right.
And as we moved throughout the course of the film, Santa was becoming much more of a important part to uh, her and Susan.
Yeah, I liked how everyone's relationship kind of developed along with, you know, Santa and just everybody in general. And you could tell that he became more important as, you know, with Susan, for example. So Doris found more, you know, oh, okay, this guy is pretty helpful, and
Mm,
he makes, you know, her daughter happy, and you know, I guess, you know, eventually, you know, it's just like, okay, this guy isn't too bad after all.
right. And I like how even Fred's character, I like how he didn't even question who he was either. I feel like he was just kind of rolling along with it, and he was open to the fact of, hey, come stay at my place. Like I've got an extra bed. You can come and uh, hang out in my apartment.
Hmm.
And they formed like a special bond too,
Yeah, yeah.
quickly. And I really liked the bond between them. I don't know what it was. It just kind of like clicked, and it was enjoyable watching that.
Yeah, again, everybody's relationship grew, and yeah, you couldn't help but just wonder, like, okay, where are they gonna go now, and how is this gonna evolve, and are people gonna be, you know, thinking he's crazy because he says he's Santa, or, you know, because again, most people would be like, you know, who are you, or what do you know,
Right.
what's wrong with you, or
Exactly.
whatnot.
Like, are you sane?
Yeah, and you know, throughout the film, it just gets better and better, and you just want to watch it more and more.
Yeah. And going back to the drama of Miracle on 34th Street, we move in to like that court case. It happens after the fact that you know Santa hits Sawyer with the umbrella. Hits. I put in quotation marks, and
So he had a bump, I guess.
yeah, he did get a bump. Yeah. Um. So then it kind of starts this this whole other like like subplot, and because like Santa's like in the the mental facility, and now there's going to be a court case. There's going to be a trial on whether or not Santa is who he says he is, and it was just like another bit of like, okay, now we're getting into like the courts and everything, and now there's going to be a whole trial. I really didn't think that Miracle on 34th Street would get into
Yeah.
any of this.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see that we were going down this road, and I was thinking to myself, is Santa going to make it out of this? How are we
Right.
supposed to prove
That he's Santa Claus.
Santa Claus?
Yeah, it's definitely a very weird thing to see. Is like, okay, where are they going with this, and how everybody's gonna shape out? And I guess it was interesting, or yeah, I guess it was interesting where Santa has to get also reminded the fact on where his positions lies, and what he believes in, just as like what he was previously doing with everybody else, and seeing Fred basically remind him of his importance, and giving him this confidence, like, okay, go into this trial and basically stand up for what you believe. And that was also another element that's kind of cool to see. Is like, okay, we got this. Santa get out of here.
Yeah, it was because it's like is Santa feeling depressed now? It was strange a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was really it was great that Fred was going to him and just reminding him who he is. He's Kris Kringle. He's Santa Claus. And yeah, that was a really good moment.
What I liked also about like when we go into this court case is just how everybody outside the court case, their reactions to it. Like when we saw other families and like react to, oh, you put Santa on court or on trial.
Yeah.
And all like the kids and all, the mothers being like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
It was hilarious to see the fact on just how their reactions were to the people putting them on trial, and oh, you're a bad person or whatnot. And that was like another extra comedy point to put on. Eventually we see this like, oh, this really good letter Susan sends to Santa, also reminding him like, oh, we are behind you, we believe in what you are.
Yeah.
And just to see that was another cool neat thing to also see Doris eventually change and say, oh yeah, I believe you too.
Right. That was definitely her turning point, and actually giving him a chance and actually believing in the guy. And
I remember when they eventually like first started, because also when going behind the scenes with the judge, the judge didn't know, like, oh, this guy's crazy probably too, with this other guy, comes up and says, oh, you better just end this trial or whatnot, because it's making bad press and stuff like that. And,
right.
Just their reactions too when Santa eventually like goes up to the stand, it's like, oh, I'm Kris Kringle, and they're like, how am I supposed to
Yeah.
how am I supposed to like defend this? The judge at one point like basically trying to help them out as much as he can,
Exactly.
but it's like, oh, it's like, just say, oh, that's the job he believes he's doing, and no, he's actually Santa, he's actually Kris Kringle.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, what are you guys doing,
Yeah, I like how he was trying to give them a way out, and they never took it. They would just kept arguing the fact that he is Santa Claus.
Right. And throughout the stands, they didn't know which way to like really go or whatnot. And eventually it comes to the point where they need to actually prove, how he's Santa. And again, that's where we go to like this dilemma. It's like, how are you supposed to prove he's Santa or whatnot? And that's where like eventually like the letters come in, and there's like a whole nother point with like the post office, which is actually really funny.
Yeah, like with all of this though, as I was watching, I was just thinking to myself, again, I did not think The Miracle on 34th would go in this. If you see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, it felt like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington esque courtroom trial case, and I thought that was going to be filibuster. And I was like,
Oh.
oh, this is kind of neat. This is kind of cool. But what did you do? What did you think about like the whole scene that we ended up here in the courtroom?
Again, it was weird for a Christmas movie. I would say,
Yeah,
I definitely didn't think we'd end up in this courtroom debating whether or not he was Santa Claus. But again, it was kind of funny just to see how everyone reacted and just how the evidence they try to bring up and like, oh no, that's it.
yeah,
It was definitely very funny just to see how this court battle was happening, and yeah, I don't know, it worked. I didn't feel like it was like, oh, it was
anything like too serious?
no, or like it hurt the film in some ways. No,
Mm.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining. When it comes to, again, it could be just because it's kind of like different in some ways
Yeah,
for like
yeah.
a Christmas film, and I don't know. Throughout it, I don't think I like got bored or like, oh, this is wrong or something like that. I guess you could say that, oh, it's kind of like older style 40s thing to do, but like I don't know, that's not fair to say.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you because, like you, I really did enjoy seeing the reactions that the families of the opposing side had. Like their whole reactions, like you were saying, the wives and then the kids, and just really upset by the fact that their parents are are basically putting Santa to trial and whether or not that's actually Santa or not. And it was really funny being able to see all of that. And I guess like the main thing was just we're really going through this trial trying to say if he's Santa Claus or not. It was just ridiculous, but it worked though in a weird way. And yeah, I would say that it didn't like ruin anything. I thought that it was enjoyable to watch that entire time. And I really think that the kicker was when the letters started coming in to the as evidence for the trial. It was hilarious. Didn't see it coming.
Yeah, when the post office basically like, oh, let's just send all these letters that we're not doing anything with to the Santa. It's kind of like that was like a funny part, just for like, okay, what if post office actually just does this or whatnot, and they're like adding to the whole theatrical
Right.
esque of this court case or whatnot, and I don't know, that was kind of funny just to see how they would do, and again another like sort of like jab to what like we believe in something or what we believe the post office to be or whatnot,
Mhm.
because they basically use this as evidence to like, oh, the post office wouldn't do anything like this or weird, because this is who Santa actually is. They send it to the correct stuff,
Right.
but this is a joke behind the scenes for the post office to do. And
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know, it's another layer of like comedy, maybe some sort of satire in there too or whatnot. And I don't know, again, it was an entertaining bit to watch.
Yeah. And it was really great. And I had a feeling that Santa was going to get out of this somehow.
Hmm.
And it was really nice when he did end up winning the case for being Santa.
Right.
And that was really nice. And I was like, okay, like now we can move on from this. And then we ended up having that Christmas party. And there was this little like not a subtle joke, but it was really funny when Doris invited Santa to over for Christmas Eve for dinner, and because the trial ended on Christmas Eve, and she invited him over to dinner, and the fact that like he looked at her with just kind of like a weird expression, and he was like, "Oh, I can't do it tonight," and she was like, "Oh, why not?" He was like, "It's Christmas Eve,"
Yeah,
and
what
I'm
are you
just like,
talking about?
"Yeah, exactly." Like he's Santa, he's got to go and do his thing, and it was just a little like I don't know. I guess it wasn't really like a subtle joke or anything, but I thought it was kind of funny because now he's got to go do his job.
Right.
Um,
It's
but
like, don't have like, did you forget? It's like, that's the thing, yeah, I do, and that's my whole job throughout the whole year.
yeah, exactly. It was funny. Um, yeah, then we move into that after party on the Christmas Day, I believe.
Yep.
And it was really nice seeing that, everyone in the in the earlier bits of the film, like, oh, they were getting their presents and everything, they were getting what they wanted. And then we get back into Susan and her wanting that house. And she was, of course, disappointed that what seemed like she didn't receive her house. My thought was, and I mentioned this as we were watching the film, I was like, oh, he's gonna dangle the keys like in front of her or something. I don't know. Or he was gonna pull out the keys and he was gonna be like, here it is. And again, coming out of like nowhere, uh, he ended up giving Fred and Doris like directions to leave the place.
I knew going beforehand that I had to do something with Fred to actually get the house because he
Right.
did tease this when like
Like he
earlier
moved into
yeah,
Fred's apartment.
earlier along. Yeah, he moved into his apartment and he kind of like eyed him towards this. Oh, you should get this house and maybe with Doris or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so there was like that tease where okay, if he was gonna produce this house or give her that house, you need to use Fred to do that.
Right.
So there was that tease that okay, it has to happen with Fred. So I don't think he was gonna like outright just give him the house. I think he was gonna again going along to where we were saying before, like he was pushing people towards this direction. So I knew he had to be with Fred and Doris together to get this house. So I assumed he was gonna push them further, and I guess I didn't expect them just to give them this map to
Yeah.
okay this exact location.
Yeah, and it was really special when we finally, and I think at this point, like as they were, going and following these directions, I already knew that, oh, like we're gonna end
Yeah.
up in the house.
Yeah.
But it was a nice feeling that like when we finally did, and then Susan just runs off and into the house, and I guess they end up just like taking it because, oh, like we're here, it's a house just she wanted, we might as well take it.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny though because in that moment when they see the cane being there, because they couldn't believe that, how did Santa or Kris Kringle, how did he know about this and everything, and was this all like a setup and stuff? And then they see the cane near the fireplace, and then Fred is like for the very first time is almost kind of like doubting.
Or like I think he's like scared.
Yeah,
of someone. It's
scared.
like the power. So
Right,
of
exactly.
Santa Claus. Like oh, it's like he did all this. I was like how?
I guess the thought was he was like, he is Santa Claus. Like I feel like in that moment, I feel like he realized that he was working with the actual Santa Claus this
Yeah.
entire time,
Yeah.
and he was defending him in court the entire time.
Yeah, because in some ways you could infer that he was like oh, like he was trying to now like I guess in some joking way, but he was putting his faith towards this, and I guess at this moment he realized that oh, this is really
happening.
Yeah.
And it was funny to see like his expression, but I mean, I think in the end he was happy with it,
Yeah.
and so was Doris, and Susan, of course. She got her house and her swing, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, how did you feel about the film and seeing it for your first time?
I liked it. I think I'll try to watch this every Christmas now.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I guess you could like I don't know, maybe you got to look at it with a Christmas film in mind rather than I don't know if that's fair. I don't know, like it comes to like you could say that some sort of scenarios were like oh they just ended up happening. For example, like the mail, if that
Oh,
mail situation never happened, maybe he'd never win the case. And there's like little bits you can make in this film, but I guess like the overall ending message to it, I guess for me, made it more just enjoyable, entertaining, and just ended up being just a well-rounded, good film to watch for Christmas time.
Yeah, and I didn't expect it to go in the way that it did, with like all these obstacles in the way, and then Santa just kind of trying to remind people of what Christmas is about and how he feels about it, and then him going through like a moment of like self-doubt even.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting because it humanized Santa Claus
Yeah.
in a way. And it was interesting to see all of that, and I didn't expect that from this film. I don't know. I expected kind of the more like Santa Claus, like the magical Santa Claus, like fixing everything and everything was going to be like perfect automatically.
Yeah.
No obstacles, nothing that felt more like humanizing. And it was interesting to see that kind of story. And I completely agree. I definitely want to have this movie added to the list of you got to watch it every Christmas, I think.
Hmm.
It just, like you said, a well rounded Christmas movie. And I think that's why it's a classic.
Yeah, and it's pretty short, even though it's an hour and 41 minutes. Like
Mhm.
it felt it went by fast because I don't know, it was enjoyable to watch and never really felt like it was some sort of like downtime. Like, oh, we can just skip this part.
Yeah.
There was none of that. I felt like everything was engaging, and you could just miss some of the jokes. I felt like
Oh, right.
because
Yeah.
again, this is like an older film, maybe a little bit more dialogue
Hmm.
heavy,
Hmm.
but when you did catch one of the jokes, it was it was really good.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. It was hilarious. And yeah, I mean, even today, like we're saying, it still like stands the test of time, even from 1947.
Yeah.
So there we have it. The 1947 Christmas classic, Miracle on 34th Street. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The End Credits. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The End Credits Podcast and over on Twitter at The End Credits. If you're watching the video version, make sure to subscribe to the End Credits YouTube channel. That's it. Thank you and goodbye.
Live in it with my mother?
But you've got this lovely apartment.
I don't think it's lovely. I want a backyard with a great big tree to put a swing on and... I guess you can't get it, huh?
I didn't say that. No. Well, it's a tall order. But I'll do my best. May I keep this picture?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Good night, sir.
Good night, Mr. Crinkle.